So for today, I'd like to talk about values. I'd like to take that conversation and really turn it into the, the anchor point for what we want to discuss this month. You know, the theme for this month is character and authenticity, and what that is as a leader. And so many leaders that I've seen have presented themselves as leaders, have presented themselves as being of great integrity, values, and leading people, rather than being disconnected from their people, and rather than being profit focused and deliverables focused. They present themselves as caring. That's how they present themselves, but who they're being is fundamentally different. Who they're being is not congruent with what they're presenting. And I wanted to talk about that because, you know, our values are so important. It's something that I cannot overemphasize. It's the anchor point for us as leaders. It's our compass bearing. It's our North Star. It's everything, right? If you want to be a good leader, you got to have good values, and you got to live by those values, and you got to let them direct you. They've got to be the foundation for every decision that you make. They've got to be your driver. They've got to be your litmus test. Every time there's a check to be done, should I make this decision or that decision? It should go into the calibration of, well, what do my values say? What would my values require of me in order to achieve whatever that is? But a lot of people don't live by their values. And then the question is why? Why are we not congruent in terms of what we say our values are and how we behave? And I want to take you on a little bit of a journey, and I promise I won't take too long. But I had a fundamental realization in the recent past. So certainly early this year, perhaps late last year, where I realized that, you know, there were two organizations that I was a member of, and a very senior member of, and board member on both. And what I realized is, you know, the mission of both of these organizations was world-class, life-changing, world-changing. The mission of these organizations was noble, and so because it was noble, what I never held myself accountable for and to was who I became as I became more senior in the organization. And so as a leader in these organizations, what I ultimately ended up doing is compromising and corrupting my personal values for the sake of the mission, for the sake of the organizations. And the organizations, as I said, were noble, but they were poorly led. And I became a part of that problem because I was not being consistent and congruent in my values. So I corrupted myself. And I had great success, right? And the organizations had so-so success. That's a different conversation. The point is that, you know, when I walked away and I did my check, my self-check, when I checked the ledgers and I balanced my scorecard, what I realized is that, yes, I did a lot of good in those organizations, but I compromised myself, and in doing so, there were casualties along the way. And I had to go and fix some relationships, and I had to go and fix some interactions. And because it was not okay with me how I ended up behaving in certain instances, because I compromised my values. Why do we do that? And I'm just being a little bit authentic and vulnerable with you right now. Why do we do that? Why do we compromise our values? And there can be many reasons for that, but most often it's because we are willing to be flexible around our boundaries, the boundaries of our values, and we don't protect those boundaries because we're seduced into thinking that the mission of an organization or the vision of another person or how they do things is more appropriate, is more important. And so we are seduced by the way they do things. So we put their agenda ahead of our values. And what we do is we compromise our values. We corrupt our values. I'm talking about good, wholesome values, right? I mean, the kind of values that most people have: integrity, honesty, fairness, kindness, love, passion, that kind of thing. So, what I realized is that in being flexible with my boundaries, I was putting another person's agenda ahead of mine. And I see that a lot in corporates. I see leaders putting the business's agenda ahead of their values. And what they do is then they don't lead their people through their values. They lead their people through the agenda. Their people suffer. People overwork. People burn out. People are treated badly. People are treated unfairly. People are disgruntled. People are unhappy, dissatisfied. Because they're being led by an agenda, not by values, not by a value system that is solid, that is being lived by their leader. So that's my challenge to you, is to really step into being your value system. Today, instead of giving you 3 tips, I'm going to give you a couple of coaching questions to really support you in having an honest look at yourself. I want to leave you with one thing before we go there, and that is, if you choose to reinforce your boundaries, and I know it's not easy, right? I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying it's simple to go against the tide of a big company and their mission and their agenda because of your values. It's not easy. But you've got to ask yourself the question, is it worth it? Because when you compromise your boundaries, your values, because of somebody else's agenda, what you're doing is you're diminishing your own value. You're saying they're more valuable than I am, therefore I will change because they are more important. If you uphold your values, you value yourself. And I spoke about self-love, and this is the highest level of self-love. It's respecting yourself. It's respecting your values. It's being congruent with who you want to be, who you say you want to be, the legacy you want to leave behind. And you shouldn't compromise that. So the coaching questions I want to leave you with are, how much do you value yourself? Would you be willing to walk away from the agenda of an organization, of another person, in order to reinforce your value because you're worth it? Let me ask you this in a different way. If it was the end of your life and you were looking back, would you be satisfied with some of the decisions that you're making today about what's important and where you should be putting your energy? That's the first question. The second question is, what values should you be living through? Are you clear on your values? Take some time to really think about that and really explore that and have a look at what's most important to you and what are your values and what could you live into that you could be proud of, that you would be one day happy to leave as a legacy. And the last question I want to leave you with is, what are the values that your people deserve? Remember, as a leader, it's not necessarily that you're the leader in a big corporation. You could be the leader in a big corporation or a small corporation. You could be the leader of a sports team. You could be the leader in your family. What are the values that they deserve from you? So I hope those really trigger some introspection, and by all means, please, DM us, hit me up with a message, ask me questions, challenge me. Let's talk about this, because for me, this is such a powerful topic. Thank you for spending the time with me. I know it's been 9 minutes. Have a great, great, great week. And remember, uphold your values because you value yourself. Cheers for now.